To the Municipal Land Use Board meeting, October 2nd, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. And I would ask everybody to stand for the flag salute. And Michael, being that you're on the adult table, you're allowed to do the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting is provided by posting on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and submission to all person entitled the same provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. I would like to remind all members of the public that we have 3 fire exits, one behind you there, one behind me here, and one over on the side. In addition, we're being recorded by both audio and video for purposes of creating a public record for this meeting. If any member of the public wishes to speak, all they need to do is come up, give their name, their address, and smile for the camera. Roll call, please.
Councilman Papaleo.
Here.
Chair Killian.
Here.
Ms. Boland is absent. Mr. Bartoloni.
Absent.
Mr. Merman.
Here.
Mr. Grasso.
Here.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Mr. Cray.
Here.
Mr. Caslin is absent. Mayor Bastide. Here. Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Sounds good. Okay, first order of minute of the meeting is we're going to approve the minutes from September 4th. And we'll put in it, and we'll be able to sell it in paperback. Any questions about the minutes?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Page 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 11th line from the top of the page. Under my name is Mr. Merman, 17 inches. They were discussing that stair in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And they were discussing the standards. Stair tread standard is not 17 inches. I think it should be 70 ratio.
Okay, so we'll correct that.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
it. Because Mr. Barons went on to discuss ratios of stairs.
What line was that again?
It
So
should
it's
be
the
the
11th line, you'll see the name Grasso, and as you slide down, you'll see Mr. Merman, 17 inches.
Pond of what? What's 17 inches on stairs? Okay. Okay, that's it.
That's it. Anybody else? Have a motion to approve the minutes?
So made.
Second?
It's corrected.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain?
I have to abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay. Okay, next is the Bergen County Historical Society. As you can see, they're not here tonight. Hopefully you got my email early enough. I only found out at 5 o'clock myself after calling Tom. That was not this Tom. That would be the attorney for the applicant. Anyway, they're not ready. I spoke to Mr. Costa. They still haven't gotten their agreements with the county. They haven't got their agreements with the apartment owner. I don't know why the apartment owner told him not, but he is. And there's still some issues with the county with the crosswalk. So until they figure that out, we'll just continue to carry it. So I have a motion to carry this application.
So moved.
Second. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, so that's carried. Next up, there's no completeness, no new business, but we do have old business. It's carried from 9/18/19, 258 Berkeley Road, Block 902, Lot 26. Come on up, folks. You know what, if you want to get a chair and join them, you're welcome. Just a little housekeeping too. Any of the paperwork with regard to the Historic Society, just leave on the desk, and we'll pick them up if you have it. If you don't have it, then you probably have it at home. But Ed will pick it up and redistribute it when we need it. Good evening, folks.
Hello.
Before we get started, just full disclosure, as most of you know, I gave my personal number to the applicant. He wanted to give me a call afterwards. What was discussed was basically some health issues that are going on in the family, and I expressed our deepest wishes for them, both personally and myself as members of the board, but that was all that was discussed. There was no discussion of anything on the application or anything else. He just wanted to pass that information along. I appreciate that, and my heart goes out to you.
And for the note, that's why I want to discuss here, so we are in person and no one thinks that.
Nope, it's fine. Happens all the
It
time.
was good to time that we have to.
They were sworn at the last meeting. You want to do it again? Go ahead.
Please
Okay.
raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your names for the record.
Dimitrios Davagiannis.
Para escrever o record.
Thank you.
Raul Medeiros.
And just for the record, Mr. Maderos is serving as the architect for a client, firm client, and he's appeared with me. There's no conflict of interest, but since we're disclosing, I just wanted to make the board aware of that.
And he appeared here last week. He's well qualified, and we welcome you again, sir. Okay, so as we were in the middle of the application, we went around the dais, you heard the concerns of the board, and you decided at that point you wanted to adjourn and come back and maybe redesign a few things. So we'd love to hear from your architect.
Sure. So just a reminder, it still holds that we are conforming in terms of all zoning aspects except impervious coverage here, where we are, the current conditions on the property are 49.3% coverage, where 35% is required. We have since the last hearing, when we were previously proposing somewhere a little over 48%, which was still a reduction from what's there now. We've since reduced it down to 43.9%, which is a 424 square foot reduction. There was a lot of, the conversation, I guess, was revolving a lot around maybe considering reducing the footprint of the proposed house by omitting the one-car garage. The one-car garage, which is approximately 200 square feet, the 424 square feet that we're now proposing to reduce to the impervious coverage is about twice that amount. We've also went ahead and reduced the driveway a little bit since the conversation we had last time, but most of the impervious coverage reduction is due to the significant reduction of the current pool patio that exists there today. And so that's just to keep it brief, that's where we are.
Tom? I'm sorry, did you have anything else, or?
I'm good to go.
Tom?
As you've heard, the applicant made an effort to reduce the impervious coverage. I think last time I also recalled a similar amount where we talked about the area of the garage or somewhere thereabouts being reduced, which I think was about 3%. We were looking for a 3% reduction, more or less. They've actually reduced it by about 5.5%. And again, mostly having to do in the area around the pool, the patio area, and some around the driveway. And again, I believe you are installing seepage pits. That's still part of the equation, so they're installing seepage pits to help mitigate it. And I think we all understand that, they're dealing with an existing condition, which however that got there, it got there, but, they were trying to exacerbate that, but it seems like we may have reached a compromise where they can improve their house the way that they want, and the borough can reduce some impervious coverage and flooding issues. Given what's there already. If they were starting from scratch, it may be a different story, but they've inherited sort of this situation. So,
Do you feel that the applicant has scraped the property as much as they can possibly?
I mean, without starting to chip away at the house in arbitrary or possibly arbitrary way, I think they've done what they could to, retain the functionality of the property. One of my concerns was reducing, the driveway width to a point where they wouldn't be able to put 2 cars in the driveway, where they would have to park more cars on the street. So that was one of my concerns. So, I mean, is there any more wiggle room? There's always wiggle room, but I think they've reached the point of possibly a fair compromise in this situation. So, I mean, it's up to the board, you know, as to whether or not they've gone far enough.
Councilman Papaleo?
No comment.
Mr. Grasso?
No comment.
Mr. Gibbons?
No, it's just, there'll be, I guess, nothing around the pool at this point? Or very
We made
minimal?
I think 2 or 3 feet, the necessary
Just to have
concrete
something.
to make to put like a cover over the window and,
Okay.
whatever is needed.
And that's feasible for you to do
Yeah, we're fine.
without ruining your pool and?
Yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted to show the board too, like, we didn't go for exactly, you know, swapping out the, whatever, 200 or 250 with another 250. We went over that because we really wanted to show that we're willing to, it's important for us to stay in the home.
And I believe you shall now, so, yeah, because since we don't have a plan, I just wanted to get an idea of how much you've taken off around there. So-
Mr. Craig? Sir?
What was the number, the current number that you reduced it to, the impervious amount? Yeah, I'll read it into the record, I didn't catch it.
43.9.
We're
43.9. So you reduced it from what? From
49.4.
49 almost, 49 plus down to 43.9. Okay. Has the applicant put into the record testimony as to what his hardship is? You mentioned something, I think the applicant should do that for the record.
All right, so,
No, let the
okay,
applicant do
let me,
it. Okay.
let me rule on that. I'm gonna say because of HIPAA issues and so forth, I don't believe that that would be proper. You can suffice to say that my feeling is it's significant enough to
Well,
consider a hardship, but I'm not gonna let the applicant come in and start talking about issues that are very personal.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking the applicant to go on record that there's a...
That there is a hardship.
Yes.
That I'm okay
That's what I'm
with.
asking for. I'm not asking for the
Okay.
hardship to come from your mouth. I'm asking the
Sure.
applicant to please put that into the record.
C2.
Yeah.
C2 hardship, that's what you're asking.
That'd be a 1.
I'm sorry, C1.
That's all right.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, it's a-
No, I didn't mean to correct.
No,
But, yeah,
you're
so
right.
there's 2 aspects to that, to the hardships. Obviously, the personal aspect, and also the fact that you're dealing with a developed site. That's a hardship. You're trying to improve a site that's developed. You're actually reducing it. So you might want to reiterate that. for the
Yeah,
record.
so, yeah, aside from the personal issues, we are also trying to improve the house, like we're reducing the coverage. And, we're improving, the house to be on par with the rest of the, neighborhood. That it's all, improved. And-
So elaborate, what are you looking for the applicant? You're asking
Okay.
him to,
You're, at this point, it's been mentioned that there are family issues that are driving this, besides the pool. I'm asking that to come from the applicant into our record.
Yes.
That's all I'm
There
asking.
are
I think he
yes.
did that at the last meeting. but-
Yes, there are family issues, and we said it in the previous meeting,
Okay,
on the record. Yeah.
okay.
And I'm satisfied.
No, I'm not
Right.
asking your satisfaction, all right?
All right.
Great. Okay, now, you're reducing, in response to our request for an equitable solution, you've reduced the pool patio. All around, is it, to a maximum of 3 feet wide?
Yes, except at the point closest between the pool and the house where
Okay.
there's still
There's 10
a
feet
patio
there.
area, but that's,
So-
the only rear hardscape left is that little 5-foot gap between the pool and the house. There's no
Okay.
wood deck, there's nothing but grass, and the perimeter for the pool, the proposed pool, just to be able to install a pool cover to maintain the pool over seasons.
You mentioned a number. I didn't quite catch it, all right? Can you tell me how many square feet you reduced the pool patio by?
Sure. So, yep,
No,
it was 654 square feet. We
okay.
reduced it by 309 square feet. It is now proposed to be 345 square feet.
That's
At
the so,
perimeter.
so you almost reduced it in half.
Correct.
Okay. It would have been nice if you said that. Okay. In that
Yeah,
terms.
well, in
Okay.
broad terms, yes.
Okay. So, and you also minimized the driveway, the total driveway width.
So that's
Bless
Thank you.
Okay.
Bless you.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Those are my questions.
Okay, I also don't have a comment specifically on the application. So I would, at this point, open to the public.
So moved.
Second, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Public, anybody? You get this all the time. I have motion to close to the public.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to ask the applicant, any final?
I just want to remind the board that the footprint of the house that we're proposing is still less than 200 square feet away from the maximum amount, so we're not pushing the boundaries here in terms of that component of the zoning requirements. The main driving force here, and we might say hardship, is the fact that the lot is currently overbuilt, and we're just trying to bring it back down to
I think you did a good job in trying to negotiate the waters here tonight. Tom?
I would agree with that, and also pertaining to the variance relief, again, the public benefits include the decrease in impervious coverage, bringing it into the site into greater conformity with the zone regulations, the inclusion of the seepage pits, which will help retain some of the drainage on site, and developing the house, in consistency with the existing neighborhood. So,
Anybody else from the board? I'd like to entertain a motion on this application.
A quick question, were revised plans submitted?
You're looking at them.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were stacked under here somewhere.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion on this application. Anybody? Bueller?
I'll make a motion to accept the plans as presented this evening and pass the variance for them to...
And that will be subject, of course, to review by our engineer for any stormwater management
Mhm.
that needs to be done. And I believe that would be the only.
Second.
Councilman Papaleo on a second, and I'll ask you to call the roll.
Councilman Papalayo?
Yes.
Sheriff Killian?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Under the circumstances, I will vote yes. Normally, this is a heck of a lot of coverage, but I'll note that the applicant went out of their way to reduce the coverage as the board requested them the last time. So since they made a valid effort, it looks like the best they can do, I'll vote yes.
That was a yes.
Mr. Grasso, did I call you?
You did not,
I did not. Okay, Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
And Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
All right.
Yay. Thank you.
Again, as I said on the phone, my heart goes out. We're all your neighbors. If there's anything we can ever do for you, and we wish you great success.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you. And we might be going for the quickest meeting on record, because that is the end of the agenda.
I have one
Okay.
thing when you open it up to the board.
Okay, well, it's open up to the board.
Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you.
folks.
Okay.
Take care.
I have noticed Mr. Nagito's old Sunoco station has had a traveling van parked there. It's gonna be approximately 3 weeks. I don't know if he has necessary permits, if there is such that exists.
All right, so
What's the story?
that's not a board issue. That is either a
Well,
Tom issue after the meeting, or the building and property
the
maintenance.
reason I bring it up,
I understand.
we have council members here, and I want them to be aware that that is happening, that I have personally no problem somebody visiting, stays there for some small period of time, but I don't...
And there is a no commercial truck ordinance on the books.
Okay, so, can somebody notify, I would imagine the code enforcement official would be the one to go down there and knock on the door?
Mhm. And then, Tom, you could follow up with that as well.
There's a Jim, the no commercial truck ordinance?
So there is a
And
height, you're allowed one commercial truck, but it's, I believe it's no higher than 30 feet, am I correct?
I believe 30 feet is correct. We reviewed that, but
30
off the top of
feet
my head, I
high?
would not want to say.
30 feet high,
It
No,
could be 30
30 feet
feet
long.
wide, it's below
No,
bridge
talking about-
clearance.
or maybe 20
Yeah.
feet, something like that.
Bridge
There,
clearance.
there's a specific height, weight,
Right.
and
Right.
one vehicle limit.
And signage.
We
That's
got
not
the
necessarily-
bridges.
Not necessarily a
Signage
commercial
on the
vehicle.
side of the vehicle.
I don't feel that.
Well, that's state law.
But you're right, it's not 30 feet tall. No,
Right.
no, we also have in our ordinance unless it's just redundant.
Okay.
Okay.
I seem to remember it was like 7.5 or 8 feet, because remember there was some...
I actually had the
some
same
place where they parked.
issue with parking, if you remember, behind the market.
Yes,
And that's been rectified
yes.
as well.
Yeah, at least that was hidden.
On the market, I've heard rumors on what might or might not be going in there. There was an article in the newspaper, I'm sure everybody read. There has been no applicants, correct? So that would probably be a use variance, because there's change of use from a supermarket to something other than a supermarket.
But if that's that's a permitted use?
If it's
maybe
a
they could
permit,
just get a
yeah,
permit.
Tom is going to weigh that, if that's a permitted use or not.
I would suggest, if there are issues like that, that the borough does or does not want to see, if there's a way to strengthen the ordinance in a way that makes it a little more clear, that might be another way to approach the issue.
Would-
Could the council receive a memo from you in that regard?
Yeah.
But would there not be a issue with parking? A number of parking stalls, for that usage?
Well, the ordinance, the way it's written now, lumps a bunch of retail
If it
type
has to,
uses
yeah.
together in terms of the
Yeah,
parking
that's the
standards,
side.
so it doesn't seem that it would require another parking standard at the moment.
Yeah, I think the parking standard would apply to new
Retail.
construction or a change of use, I would think, if it's something in that long list of permitted businesses that can go
It comes
in.
down to classifications and definitions and so forth.
All right, so
Yeah.
I was just giving the board an update. We don't need to get too far into this, especially on the record.
Right.
So we'll see, but I caution everybody, don't read the rumors so much on the blogs, because nobody really knows anything, what's going on until the application comes in. As far as anything else new, I haven't heard of anything. There's been no whispers, Tom, right? Yeah, so
A lot of,
hopefully things will
single-
quiet down now that the winter is here, and the building, the house additions will slow down until next year. There have been a number of referrals that we talked about, Tom, together. I'd like to put together a list before the end of the year, so when the new council starts on next year, you guys can maybe take a look at some of those things that we discussed, because I think we're both in agreement on most of these issues. So I'll put together a little list for you. We also need to get working on the master plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think after the first of the year, we'll put together a new committee this way.
Well-
There's new people on the board.
If I could just chime in real quick. So the last master plan reexamination report was adopted in November 2009, which is statutory.
So it is ready.
So the background work is done, but we haven't convened with the board or the subcommittee yet to iron out some of the details. it's more or less ready to go, but I would recommend the board.
Because we have to adopt
deal with
it too,
before the end
correct?
of the year. Yeah, you can do it in one meeting.
We have to adopt it, and believe me, the council has to accept it.
All right, so, I know you were on the committee.
Yes, I'm supposed to be the chairman.
Well, again, the last one was adopted in November 2009, and technically you get 10 years. So
Yeah.
if it could be done in November, that would be best.
All right, so,
What,
I'll discuss with Brian, with Nyleen and Brian. And,
I don't see how we can,
well, so we more or less have a draft prepared, and then it would come to the board. It could technically be adopted in one meeting, and it's not a master plan. It's recommendations moving forward. What
Okay.
works? What are the current issues, and what are the issues that the recommendations moving forward from a master planning standpoint, and then the council would have the opportunity to review and comment on that document.
so the document would, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Are redevelopment, updates to redevelopment areas included in that reexamination?
They would be mentioned, but they would be a separate effort. So they would be
And their
acknowledged.
timing is different?
The timing
So-
would be, it's a different
Okay, so
process.
because we have that ongoing,
Requirement,
Right.
yes.
Mary, just ask a question. Tom, this would be, if I understood you correctly, this would be a recommendation for consideration?
So what it is, it's an analysis of the master plan that has to occur once every 10 years. And the idea is to make sure that your land use policies and ordinances are up to date, and to examine any issues that maybe some new ordinances should be tweaked or enacted to deal with a certain issue. So one could be recognizing redevelopment. You would acknowledge the affordable housing efforts that have gone on. If you wanted to strengthen any areas of the ordinance, such as the issue we just talked about, you'd have all these lists of recommendations from which the council could then, over time, implement or not.
So it's not so much a binding action as it is an action of intent?
Exactly. It's an analysis and recommendations, but nothing from a policy standpoint actually happens until the master plan is formally amended or those types of ordinances are actually enacted. So it does stand as a recommendation. Nyleen, anything to add to that? Am I saying it the right way?
I think I think you are. We just went through it with one of my other boards.
in the last one, if I recall, we gave, I think maybe we sort of touched on it, recommendations as to what we would like to see, because I remember one of them was, I think we discussed encouraging outdoor dining, stuff like that.
That may be the case. I don't remember the
Okay.
exact details.
I have a copy, I just haven't read it. What I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, since currently I'm the chair of that committee, I would like to sit down with Tom privately.
Okay.
And we could go over some of the, we've kicked this around informally.
Do you remember who else was, does anybody remember?
I
who
have
else
a
was
list
on
at
there?
home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then when you want to convene that committee, just give me a call. I'll have the, one of the two rooms reserved for you so you can meet up here if you want.
All right, we'll talk about it when we sit down.
And I
Because
think a
last
few
time-
months ago, I may have emailed the board, the last re-examination report, just sort of as an update into review.
I don't think I saw that.
I could,
You could send it out. Mm-hmm.
But the last time we did it, as I recall, there were certain items in Cox that you had to cover. Is that still?
it's the MLU, the municipal land use law. There's 5 specific items
Right.
that have to do with changes that have occurred since the last re-examination
Exactly,
report,
yeah.
and those sort of analytical.
Right,
type
okay,
things.
all right.
And some towns just do a very abbreviated one, just to stay legal, for lack of a better term, for the next 10 years, and some really get into the nitty-gritty of
Right.
planning topics. So there's 2 different approaches.
All right.
I would recommend at least touching on a few, contemporary issues.
All right. Enough said.
Right.
We'll get together and kick some of the format around that we have to discuss.
Yes, sir.
It's recently come to my attention that I believe a cable company has been leaving trailers in front of residential homes for as much as 1 or 2 weeks.
Weeks? Wow.
With spools of wire on. Is that something that this body needs to consider, or is that something that a different body would need to consider? Because I don't know that commercial vehicles can leave trailers on borough property. It's very recent, that's why I'm bringing it up. I believe we have ordinances against commercial vehicles or trailers, but if it is a utility type.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was gonna go with that.
Is there then an exception, and does that exception extend to a trailer, simply a spool left in residential side?
So, my quick answer would be that would not be something that would have anything to do with us. That would be with the code enforcement officer. And then if the borough decided that they wanted to create an ordinance, of course, the ordinance would be created by the mayor and council.
Would they have gotten approval from the police department also? If they would have had to go down to them?
So that's something that has recently come up, and I have asked the VA to look into it, but I just figured since we were having a general discussion, I did not think it was a germane of this board, but then we just brought up other questions that I thought, such as what was happening at the Sunoco station, which also recently came to my attention from a resident.
It seems to me that if you're going to tell a utility or somebody that you don't want it there for over X days or whatever, that we, the borough, should offer him a place to put it. And in that sense, I would think the parking lot opposite the swimming pool would be a good temporary storage area for them to get it off the streets.
Yeah, especially now since this swimming pool is closed.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And my other pet peeve, of course, Tom and I discussed as well, are those clothing containers.
Now, I've received a copy of, Tom, I don't know if I received it from you, of ordinances about strengthening our, I think that's something that this body should recommend to the council, that it,
I don't know if I shared this story, but it's kind of funny, so I will. There was a member of the board who happens to own a business in town. When they got chased out of one spot, they dropped it off in his parking lot, and he had an absolute fit the next day. So, what I'm seeing from these companies is when they're forced to move it, they just take it to another spot, and hopefully they don't get caught. And I understand the Maltese Cross on it and everything. I did my own research on it. The New Jersey, New York firemen have, I guess, allowed the rights to that to be used for a fee, but my understanding is the fee is very nominal. And I don't think that the borough, which has on borough property, is receiving the proper amount of rent that it should. Because my understanding from reading on the web, these things generate close to $10,000 a month in clothing, yeah. And we're not getting anything for it. So if you go online and you do a little research, you'll see a lot of towns that have got ordinances where they charge these clothing containers for public, put them on the public spot.
It's our property, why not get something?
Exactly.
Or don't let them on the property at all.
And if you want to benefit the fire department, you take the money you charge them and donate, borough work it out with the fire department. But the minimal amount of money that we get a year, I understand that there were 2 people that had fires in their homes and they each got a $500 gift certificate. I hardly think $500 gift certificate each is worth what they're getting in clothing over there. So if you want, I can put that into a memo and send it over to the mayor and council for you guys.
You can include it in your year-end review as well.
Yeah. That's all I got. I'll entertain. Anybody else?
It's grievance night.
You know what? It's really good that sometimes we get a chance to all do this and bounce things off people. We're all, we've all been up here for a while, so we all have a lot of interest in what happens in the town. And it's good that we bounce stuff off each other, and especially having 2 members of the mayor and council here that we can refer that stuff back. It's great. On that note, if nobody else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Of the second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed or abstained? All good. Thanks, everybody.